Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. This video we're going to be reviewing and installing the Anderson fuel rail kit for the 86 through 95 Mustang. The kit comes with everything you see here on the table. A fuel pressure regulator with gauge, Dash 8 feed line, Dash 6 return line, Dash 8 and Dash 6 hose-in fittings, spring lock adapters, and the main component, the Anderson fuel rails. Recommended specialty tools for this job is a set of spring lock quick disconnect tools and a set of AN stainless steel cutting shears, which will make cutting the hose ends very easy. I will also be using some PTFE thread sealant to mount the fuel pressure gauge to the regulator. Not included with the kit, but also recommended to pick up beforehand, is some vacuum hose for when you mount your fuel pressure regulator to attach to a vacuum source. Remaining tools will just be standard hand tools like wrenches and screwdrivers and stuff along those lines. And also I'll be showing you how to assemble one of these hoses during the installation process. The hoses are not pre-cut. You do have to cut them to length based on your setup. The system is modular. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get started with the installation. The kit will be installed on my 1993 Mustang GT. If you hear a fan running, my apologies. It's super hot out, super muggy, so I want to try and keep cool as much as possible. We're going to go ahead and take our quick disconnect tools, and we're going to disconnect the feed line up here at the top, and then I'm actually going to disconnect the return line down at the bottom. There's two different connection points here. So we're going to go ahead and pop the safety lock on here. We're going to go ahead and grab our quick disconnect on here and go ahead and get that unlocked and get that line separated. And then we'll get the lower one separated. And grab a couple of rags so we can catch any fuel that will drip out of here. Right here, catch any fuel that may drip out of the rail. Take our quick disconnect tool on here. Already snapped in, so now I just gotta kind of separate this. Now, if these have never been apart, maybe a little tricky. You may have to push in to help break the seal on the O-rings on the inside of this, or it may just give away right away, but you'll be able to tell pretty quick. There we go. Okay. Alright, that line's separated. Let's go ahead and remove the line down here. And there's the line we're going to disconnect at the bottom. Same thing, grab a quick disconnect for the spring lock and separate it. Both factory feed and return line down below is disconnected. We're going to go ahead and start removing the factory fuel rails here. Quick note about the crossover line to the front. Two ways you can do this. You're not going to be reusing these. So you can remove your distributor to make it easy to pop out, no problem. Or if you don't feel like retiming your engine, you can take a sharp razor blade and just cut the front line here. Just be very careful, and since this is all going to go in the trash anyway, just cut it, and that way you can just move everything out. Of course, I'm going to disconnect the factory these fuel injectors in here, and then of course I'll remove these rails. Okay, here's the return line. Again, we disconnected at the bottom and also from the rail since we got the rail assembly out. We're actually going to reutilize this part, but what we're going to do, since both ends are the exact same size, we're just going to flip it around. And I'm going to wrap this around the charcoal canister because I'm going to be mounting my fuel pressure regulator along the core support over here. So I'm going to bend the line just slightly, ever so slightly here. Got to be careful with it not to kink the line. And we're going to be able to utilize this to retain the return portion here. Kind of looks kind of tricked too, so I'll show you how that's going to look. Okay, so as you can see here, down there, got the return line reconnected because we flipped it over. Got the safety lock on there and everything. And now it's wrapped up under charcoal canister. It comes out right here. So when I'm going to mount the regulator right here with my adapter fitting, will go right there. So nice little trick way, and it should remain with everything once it's plugged back in, should remain out of the way for all the components, including any other components that might go here in the future. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and assemble the fuel rails. We're going to take one of the Dash 8 adapters. There's 3 of those included. They're going to go on each side of the rail here. The exception is this 45-degree swivel fitting. This is included to provide extra clearance around the distributor. Some aftermarket intake manifolds and distributors won't require this, but it's nice that it comes with it so you can orientate your hose any which way you want. So this will go around. Let's see here, that's the other side. So that will go around the driver's side front, which is this one. So we'll lubricate the O-ring with some dielectric grease. Any super lube, non-petroleum based lubricant will be good. We'll thread that in here and tighten it down. And then we'll install the injectors into the rails and get them set into the car. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and lubricate the O-rings on the injectors here and get them seated into the rail. I like doing this first just because it makes it easier to set the whole assembly into the lower intake manifold. Alright, both assemblies are put together. Let's go ahead and get these into the car. Alright, just a close up here of the fuel fitting. You can see it has plenty of room around the distributor. It's nice that it comes with this. That way you can orientate your hose any way you need it. And this does swivel in place so you can move this anywhere you need. Alright, let's go ahead and button up the other side. The other side went on a little bit easier. The only thing to take note of is if you're still running your coolant tube for your heater hose, this injector here will be pretty tight. But again, you should be able to swivel these injectors, yeah, no problem. And then leave the orientation you need so that way you can plug the injector back in. And as you can see here, it'll get tight also down the heater core, but again, you can push the heater core over to the side to be able to put your fuel hose on. Alright, go ahead and tighten these rails down. I want to go ahead and demonstrate how to assemble one of these PTFE lined stainless steel brake hoses. First off, when I unraveled it, it's a little frayed right here, so I'm going to show you why Anderson recommends these hose cutting shears to make nice clean cuts of it. So we're just going to go ahead and cut this section off right here. Just like that. Now we have a clean end. And something you can do is take something like a needle nose plier, something with a conical shape like this, and stick it into the hole here, kind of spin it around, and you get a nice circular shape once again. Okay, so in order to assemble this hose here, I'm going to go ahead and take our fuel fitting. I'm going to use one of these Dash 8 45 degrees as the example. The steps are going to be exactly the same for each hose end. I'm going to go ahead and take the end off. And just to show you what's inside, inside is this little, they call it an olive, I guess you can call it an insert. And inside there is a little shelf. You can kind of see the ribs, but essentially what you want to do is get the inner sheathing of the hose, which is the PTFE lined item here, and get it right up against the top end of this shelf. So we're going to go ahead and take the back of our hose end, we'll go ahead and slide it down over like that. As you can see, a lot of this is showing. We don't want that much showing, but for example purposes this will be fine. But got this cap in down here. We're going to let that slide down. We'll just put it in the device to make this easy. We're going to take our olive cap now and put it over this, and we want it to be right at the edge, right, just like that. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now we'll take a little silicone spray, just like that. just a little bit. Take the hose in. We're going to stab this pretty much into here. We want this seat all the way down, just like that. Very easy. All right. Now we're going to take this end that we just slid down and thread it back onto the fitting. Should thread on a good amount by hand. Once you get to a hard stop, then you can start tightening it with a wrench. Pretty easy. Okay, so like that. And we're going to go until it pretty much gives us another hard stop. Don't want to over tighten it because that could possibly cause leaks. Pierce the hose, you don't want to do that. But essentially, that's it. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this down with my wrenches. And then we can go ahead and make the other side. Start measuring out our lines and everything. And make our fuel hoses and start wrapping this installation up. Hose in completed. I'm going to go ahead and start kind of marking where I need to make my measurements to create the other side of the hose. So I'm going to kind of just thread this on by hand. Just a couple threads just to hold it in place. And then what I'll do is kind of take a brief measurement here where we're going to make this line. Use a Sharpie marker here. And that looks like that's going to be fine. Tighten it up a little bit, go right there. That looks good. Alright. That's where we're going to make our cut and make our other hose end. Our crossover line is complete. Went ahead and lubricated the threads a little bit with some silicone spray so that way nothing gets bound up or anything like that. And go ahead and thread these onto the front. Right, and there's the front crossover line. See, we have plenty of space between the distributor. This is a dash 8 line. This is a feed crossover line, kind of like how the factory is. Of course, you got tons of room on the passenger side. Okay, so I got our main feed hose from the factory fuel lines to the back of the fuel rail, and now for the straight fitting here, we're going to attach this spring lock adapter. It's just literally going to thread into straight fitting here. Tighten that up, and then this will literally lock in just like the factory one did. Push into the factory connector, and that's how we'll get our feed source. Goes in here. It's kind of just laying in here for now. We can tuck this around, but here's our factory feed connection. Went ahead and lubricated the O-ring here. Then we'll just take our hose, fuel hose, and literally pop this down into the connector. And there we go. And actually we can still utilize the factory spring lock protector. Just literally pop it on. Just like that, we have our feed connection. On the other side, I decided to run the remainder of the hose through the inside of the inner fender well. Went through the back side of the rail to the opening on the fender apron. That's where I'll make my finalized connections over to the regulator. Okay, just briefly here you can see how everything's going to lay out. So this is the hose that's running from the inner fender back here, going to the back of the rail. Of course, got the front loop. We got the line going to the back of the rail, which connects to our factory feed line right there. And of course our return is down here. So you can see things kind of tuck away pretty nicely. We're going to go ahead and mount the regulator. For me, personally, I'm going to mount mine right here, because the hose for the feed's right there, and of course the return is right below it. So I'm going to go ahead and take the bracket that comes with it and drill a couple holes, put some self-tappers in, get it ready to install. Okay, here's the last piece. This is the return hose with the return spring lock adapter fitting. Pretty short, but it'll work. Get this installed and all the hoses will be done. Okay, there's the return line. It's even got the safety cover back on it, connected to the regulator, which is connected to factory return right there. Okay, before I put the upper intake manifold on, I'm going to go ahead and prime the system and check for fuel leaks. All the lines are tight, and then I can put the intake manifold on, zip tie some lines out of the way, and run the vacuum for the regulator. Overall review of this fuel rail kit: it is a super simple installation. You don't need to get it on a lift or put it on any jack stands to do or complete the installation. The only tedious job is actually assembling your fuel hoses. The Dash 8 lines are actually simple. The only real thing that might be a little bit of a problem is the Dash 6 lines, because of just how physically smaller they are. Overall, this is a great option to start upgrading your fuel system. Being that the system is modular, you can upgrade things as you go and as your budget allows. Now you have a good high flow fuel rail set installed into the car, which can handle a good amount of horsepower, especially if you decide to go forced induction down the road. If you're to finish out the fuel system, you would just need to create a brand new return line that goes all the way to the tank and the regulator, and of course a feed line that goes up to the rail and to the back of the tank. You can buy the fuel rail separately or as this package kit here from AndersonFordMotorsport.com.